Hej, velkommen tilbake til Infinigate TV her på Blackhat. Jeg er sammen med Ben Johnson fra Carbon Black. Welcome, Ben.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. So, Carbon Black, give us the elevator pitch.
Sure. So, Carbon Black Endpoint Security, really meaning host, computer security. We like to say we offer the most complete endpoint platform, security platform, but really trying to fit in both prevention, detection, and response. You gotta block what you can, detect everything else, and then have the ability to respond quickly. So really trying to empower security teams.
So you mentioned response, so incident response. Is that something? Is that a trend? We definitely see it as a need at some of the end customers that we talk to and partners, that they need something. They can't guarantee that you won't get breached, you won't get hacked, something might happen. Then what?
Yeah.
So, could you take us through like 48 hours before, after a breach? Is that something that, so with or without Carbon Black tools?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we invented Carbon Black was you need to rewind the tape. You need to have that recording so that when, in the US it was when the FBI calls you, but when law enforcement calls you or something is detected, you can rewind the tape and quickly figure out scope. Is this patient 0? Is this the first machine, or is this the 20th machine, patient 20, in the infection? And historically, it's this cobbling together of different event logs that aren't really designed for this kind of information. It might be digital forensics where you're taking hard drive copies, and it takes weeks and weeks for any kind of simple alert. And so being able to understand scope and then ultimately root cause, how did it get in, what happened quickly. And really, I think when people hear incident response, they think headline-making breaches. But really, everyone's doing really continuous response every day. You have dozens of alerts that you're responding to, and any of those could be this headline-making intrusion, or it could just be some tiny little piece of malware that's not going to spread or whatever. So, but either way, really, our philosophy, but I think the industry is moving in this way, is this notion of visibility, of arming the security team with just better information, more context, what's going on. We like to say if you can't see it, you can't stop it. And so, having all this information so you can rewind the tape, but ultimately that information also leads to better detection. You start looking at things a little differently, you start noticing more anomalies, or just you can start looking for specific malicious behavior that you really can't see from like the network layer or from other more traditional type approaches to security.
And maybe the information's there, just how do I find it? Like you said, it could historically take weeks, and maybe not even possible to do with your own security team. You might have to bring someone else in to do like forensics. So I wanted to talk to you about maybe what you see as a growing trend in security market. Is that broad enough?
Yeah. So
pick a favorite.
My role right now is largely to be outward facing and some evangelism, some strategy, but I get to meet with some of the best security teams in the world, from these huge companies, even small companies might have great security teams, lots of partners, from really large partners down to startups, and I get to travel globally. So I say that because it's given me really good perspective. I've really kind of learned from each of these interactions. I've gotten the opportunity to meet with 600 different companies in the last 2 years. So I'm talking to a lot of people, and basically I get to say what's working and what's not, and then ideally digest that and then have my own sort of take. But the fundamental issue is, I like to call it the talent deficit. There's just not enough people, and really I haven't traveled anywhere that said, oh yeah, we have no problem hiring and filling headcount, right? So people are starting to get money, they're starting to get headcount, but this talent deficit really has led to this sort of revolution in security. And it's not like a black and white or 0 and 1, like one day it's this way, the next day it's this way. But what's happening is the talent deficit is driving people to do more like automation, or it's giving rise to this orchestration market, and even SIMs are starting to evolve. It's leading to a huge explosion in MSSP, managed service offerings, where one team can be the experts and then service dozens or hundreds of companies. And it's also leading to teams looking for a refresh, looking at, hey, we're buying these 20 products, but we're really not doing a great job. Can we either swap them out, or do we need all 20? And so what that sort of led to as well is we just recently acquired a company called Confer, another endpoint security company. So our two main products were really around empowerment to lock down your systems, or enforce policy, whitelist, app control, whatever you want to call it, or detection and response, the EDR market, the hunting, that kind of thing. Really like this data-driven visibility towards detection and response. And what we said is, look, that's amazing, and companies do amazing things with those products. But there are companies that either aren't ready for that, or just maybe don't fit that need. And so when we acquired Confer, it's really this next generation AV. It's swap out your existing AV for this new product. It's going to be a lot better, but it doesn't require much time. It doesn't require much overhead or expertise. And so that's just an example. But companies are looking at, can I boil my security stack down to 3 or 4 products that are fundamental, that are keystone, that are cornerstone, and then maybe complement, versus before it's just buy a whole bunch of stuff, slam it together, hope my team can do something with it.
Well, you mentioned the talent deficit, and so it seems that at least security teams have sort of the management's ear, at least. Might say finally. So I guess with like breaches in the media, security being a hot topic, at least you have their attention now as maybe you're the CTO or whoever, but sort of is it like, and now what? What do we do now?
I think you've hit it really well. I think there's still pockets of the globe, and even within each region, there's pockets that think it's not their problem. But for the most part,
for the most part, I think that most business owners and the boards, CEOs, I think they understand. Even if they don't really, you don't have to be interested. You can't really escape security in the news. It's all over. So.
Yeah, absolutely. As you said, for the most part, you could pick a random company and they definitely get it from the board level, CEO level. At least they get the fact that they need to think about cyber. They're not going to be necessarily experts at the board level or something, but they know that they have to give their team resources, whether that's headcount or budget for tools or changing the culture of the company. And I think you hit it earlier where you said, now what? A lot of it is, okay, now we have a problem. Like the awareness campaign is sort of working, but because of the media and the breaches, right? It's not like an overt awareness so much. But now it's like, okay, so then now what do we got to do? And then how do we find the people to do it? And then how do we actually allow them to do it? And so there's a lot of challenges and a lot of steps still have to do. I think it is showing some progress. I think this notion of collective defense, and that's kind of our term, but this notion of sharing more, and not just threat intel. I get kind of fired up about this. Like, threat intel's great. We got to share, what hashes and binaries and tactics and behaviors are being used, but we need to share more around what did you build for a security program? How did you build it? And then why did you build it? That doesn't necessarily get shared. And some companies have done some amazing things, and yet the world doesn't really know, like, oh, if we just kind of follow their model, even if you only have 2 headcount, you'll be successful. So we're definitely making progress. I think just to sort of wrap up this thought, the tough thing is when you create this awareness, it sounds scary because you're saying, oh, all these people are attacking you, and there's nation states and there's criminals.
Well, the scare tactics with all the, how many percentage
right.
of breaches start with your whatever.
Right, but the challenge is reality is pretty scary. So how do you convey reality and not sound like you're selling through FUD, fear? Yeah. And I think that's still a challenge. But for the most part, people can just read the newspapers themselves and see, look, we don't want to be there. And it's shifted from a straight up like defense posture to more of like a business continuity, disaster recovery, that category of need. I think security is sort of migrating into that, so people understand it more. There's not necessarily a clear ROI. It's more just, look, this is the cost of doing business.
Yeah, it's like paying your electric bill. You just got to do it.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess tools that, if you look at, say, 5 years ago, it's totally different tool set now to, like you said, hunt for where did it come from, what process started it. Just go back in time, time machine, and find out where the, talking about the carbon black interface, of course. Just to sell that. That looks really good. Check it out.
Thank you.
Yeah, well, thank you for some interesting thoughts, and thank you for doing this little interview with us. And hope you have a good Blackhat.
My pleasure. It was fun. Yeah. Thank you.
Det var allt för oss. Vi ses snart igen.